Rod. Thanks for helping us with the interview. And why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, your background, just some general info about you.
Okay. My name is Rod Reasen. I am the President and CEO of Healthiest Employer, LLC. We are a wellness intelligence organization. We collect wellness data and information and write research papers and offer a subscription service to the wellness industry.
Okay, tell us a little bit how you got to that point. How did you get to the point of Healthiest Employers, and a little bit more of your background and getting into that?
Okay. My background, when I first got out of college, I was in financial planning, but progressed into doing more group benefits, fee-based benefit consulting and wellness consulting over the last 8 years, and had an opportunity to sell that business. But in the meantime, I had started this other company, Healthiest Employers, to be focused on the wellness industry.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your educational background, what you come out of.
Right.
Schooling, yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I went to Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina. It's a liberal arts Christian school. I studied double majored in marketing and finance with a minor in technical writing and Bible. From there, I've many classes and continuing education in the wellness industry.
Okay. Well, one of the points of this interview is we wanted to talk to you about leadership and like your definition of leadership, what your leadership philosophy is. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that right now. So just to start off, what is your personal definition of what you think a leader is, what it takes to be a good leader?
A leader, wow.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, well, it's, I do think there are born leaders, natural born leaders, but I think that leadership is something that can be trained. Leadership is no more than understanding where you want to go and having those that you're interested follow you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have a personal leadership philosophy, a way of operating around, especially around Healthiest Employers?
Leadership philosophy. Lead by example. So obviously if I was 450 pounds and getting up on stage in front of hundreds of people and CEOs and speaking on wellness, the message doesn't fit the speaker. So, or if I had a cigarette hanging out of my mouth,
right.
that wouldn't work. So lead by example.
Okay, so lead by, yeah, that's a good one. Are there any particular challenges or even rewards that you find with this leadership philosophy that you take with you every day?
Certainly. Because I'm in the wellness business, you don't want to be caught at McDonald's. So there's certain personal responsibility that you have to take as a leader. I used to, in my old company, I'd have guys that would ask questions and say, hey, can we do this? Or why don't you do certain things? One of the ways I would answer that was, as a leader, you have not only your eyes, but your spouse's eyes and your kids' eyes watching you in leadership. So there are more people watching you than you can ever imagine.
Right. And
your decisions that you make, the actions that you take, and the character that by the life that you live, you influence a lot of people.
Right. Okay. Are there any major influences that play a major role in your leadership philosophy and in developing that leadership philosophy along the way?
Sure. As a believer, as a Christian, my faith guides me by principle in every decision that I make. Right out of college, I developed a group of friends that were all, at the time when I was in my 20s, these guys were all in their late 50s. Started doing these fishing trips with them, and developed this group of 10 guys that are all older than my father, but successful business people in the multiple hundreds of millions of dollars that these guys are worth, but all good Christian guys. So you look at their character first, and then you look at their business principle, because you can find lots of guys out there that are successful in business, but when you look at their character, their lives are a shamble. They don't practice in a way that is one that I could live. So.
Okay. Yeah, on the topic of that, you mentioned faith. how does faith play a role in especially like at Healthiest Employers, and what role does that play in your leadership philosophy?
As a leader, we all believe in something. You're going to put your faith in a certain moral standard. Mine is based on biblical principles. So I think in every decision that I make, you have to look at what are the consequences. And the Bible lays out the Ten Commandments. We have the Golden Rule that's available to we talk about. Right. For me, it's faith and how I live life.
And one of the things we talked about in class just a week or two ago was about values and like core values, and what there's different areas that whether it's personal values, or we talked about organizational values, like business type values, and then there's also your societal ones in society today. Are there any of them that stick out to you personally that like what are your strongest core values that you stick to for yourself?
Sure. Discipline would be one. So if, as a leader, if I show up at 7 o'clock one day and decide to come in at 9 the next day, and I'm not disciplined, then I'm going to have a workforce that is also not disciplined. So that's one big one, is discipline. Truth above all else. Sometimes in business it's easy to blur the lines between black and white and get into the gray, and it's very simple. I've seen with other business partners in the past to lie about something, but it's a small world, things come back, so truth above all else.
Okay. Speaking of your staff, is there anything that you specifically do to help inspire them, motivate them on a daily basis?
Sure. The motivation is one of those things that's not you can't write out a prescription for motivation. Every one of us as human beings are motivated by different factors. Those that are in running the past organization that I had several guys that didn't care about money, and yet they were in sales. So typical philosophy says, all right, sales guys, motivate them with bigger bonuses, fun trips, new cars, and these guys weren't motivated by that. So understanding your population, your workforce, and what motivates those people individually. You can't stereotype.
Right, okay. Now what do you feel as a leader you can do to help manage staff, maintain, we hear a lot about work and life balance in this day and age. Mm-hmm. What do you do as far as that's concerned?
I think that goes to our philosophy as an organization. We are very flexible because we're an organization that's in the health world. You have this big movement towards flexibility in schedules to go do workouts. So our personal philosophy as a business is we're going to give you the task before you laid out, and if you can accomplish those tasks between 9 and 6, then we're going to allow you to accomplish those between 9 and 6. If you want to work weekends, if you want to work late, if you want to waste your time during the day, if you get all your work done at night, I'm going to set it before you a set of tasks. What we found is that our population becomes more effective because now we give them freedom. Statistics will show us that we will spend more time with people we work with than our own family. So if I give my members, my employees, an opportunity to spend more time with their family and to have a proper work-life balance, I get motivated employees.
Right. Okay, good, yeah. What do you think is the toughest part of being a leader in an organization such as Healthiest Employers?
I think the toughest part is just understanding that you have a personal responsibility and knowing that you drive down the road and you may not know the person beside you on the road, but they may know you. And as I speak, I'm because of where Healthiest Employers has come and where we're going, I fly all over the country and speaking somewhere nationally once a month. There's no possible way I know all the people that see me or that may know me. So my actions as a leader, that's probably the toughest thing, is thinking, okay, I could be watched right at this moment.
Right. What about on the other side of that, though? What do you think is the most rewarding part of being a leader?
I think from a faith perspective, the most rewarding is being able to live your life in a way that is an example of godly character. and that is something that's very encouraging.
Okay. What do you think a person can do if they were looking to be a leader or be a better leader in an organization they're with? What can someone do to better improve their skills as a leader?
I think the first thing, the first requirement of any good leader is a moral character. If you don't have good moral character, you'll never be found as a good leader. There are lots of leaders that are leadership by position or by power, by fear, and we read about them in the history books, and they go down as infamous leaders. So the type of leader you want to be, if you're asking to be, how do you become a good leader, someone that people look back and say, hey, there's a Ronald Reagan or an Abraham Lincoln, and say, man, they had leadership. Every one of those men or women that we look back on history and say they were good leaders, it's because they had a moral aptitude that was strong. They led by example because of their morality, not because of necessarily their ideals.
Okay. And just one final question to end out the interview with here. What advice would you give to students coming out of school or looking to get into jobs and getting management jobs and going into those positions? What bit of advice would you give to them?
What specific are you looking for?
Just in general, are there things that you find that students can do coming out of school to not only get into those types of jobs? I mean, obviously education plays a part in that, but are there things like you've mentioned, moral code, you mentioned character and that type of thing already. Is there anything else that you find students, I don't know, maybe you even hired someone and say, man, I wish you would have done this better, I wish you would have been better at this, or maybe focusing in on certain skills that they could develop?
I am around a lot of very, very successful people, CEOs, and I meet with companies like Nike and American Express, Dell, Intel, and I will tell you that the number one thing that people look to hire for is character. If they can find someone that is trustworthy, that they sit across from, and they can tell that they're not trying to blur the lines between truth and error, that is the very first thing that people will look for. So as an individual, if you don't be ashamed about not having a XYZ on your resume, be honest. And in the employment world, what we say is we can hire for character, we can train for competence. You're obviously going to school for technical knowledge and to gain skills, so you're above that person that doesn't have competence, so that will help you. But I look at hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of resumes, and when I interview a person, I look for character first and then competence.
Okay, well, that's all the good advice, actually. But thanks for your help with this. So that's all the questions I have. So
All right, good.
I'll tell you, we appreciate your help with this project and the interview.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks.